Name, John Byrne, age 17, religion, Catholic, offence, breaking and entering, and sentence 6 months detention in St. Patrick's, North Circular Road, Dublin. This is John's first time in St. Patrick's, but it's not his first time in trouble. On the other occasions, he got the Probation Act. And this time, he finds himself behind these pretty solid walls, together with about 150 young fellas between the ages of 16 and 21, and this is going to be his home for quite a while. John is not as tough as he looks. When the officer comes along tonight and locks and bolts this cell door, it could well be that John will cry himself to sleep, as he finds himself, for perhaps the first time in his life, behind a bolted, locked door, in a room to himself, in a bed to himself. Tomorrow, John makes the final break with his old life. Tomorrow he puts on the rough clothes and heavy boots and has his hair cut in regulation style. Along with all the other jeans and drain pipes and winkle pickers, his own clothes are put into storage, and also sometimes other less pleasant relics of the past, like chains and knuckle dusters and studded belts. Still, it's a past that must be inquired into if we're to understand how John and the others came to be here.
It has some pigeons, you see.
Yeah.
And we broke into this mill to get wheat for the pigeons.
Yeah.
We found the safe, then we found the key of it, and we opened it, took the money. So I found it was an easy way of making money.
Well, was that your first job?
That was the first, yes.
Was it the last?
No, it wasn't the last.
You got
it was a lot
going
more.
from then on?
Got going from that, yes.
What are you in St. Patrick's for?
Robbing fella.
What kind of robbing?
House breaking.
Did you do many jobs?
I did it in a lot, fella.
So you're one of these fellas that we read about in the evening papers now and again?
Well, I suppose I'd put it that way.
Was it for the money that you did these jobs?
It was, yes.
I started launching about cafes and that, and got in with the wrong company, Irish boys and English boys combined, and I saw that they were getting money fairly easy, so I tried it myself, and then I got myself in trouble.
How?
Well, I took a van load of portable radios from outside a shop, drove it away, and that was the same one. Second time was the same one.
Well, when I was in England, I got into a company over in England, and celebrating a win one night, we went off drinking, and then I got the longing for it and kept at it. Came home and started drinking at home, came home on holidays, and after getting home on holidays, his father died, and started drinking, and when he wasn't with me then I joined a butter company and got into trouble with those.
The inadequate work in Ireland, the inadequate employment, and when a boy sees some of his boys he went to school with coming home from England, all dressed up in flash watches and everything, that he thinks to himself, well, I could have them too, but if I could get them on easy.
How do you think fellas get into trouble?
Well, first of all, they stay out of work, fella, and they need money to clothe themselves and go out and enjoy themselves. And they get browned off and they want money to go somewhere, so to get some easy money somewhere.
Whatever may have been the cause of the crime, the result is the same, a more or less lengthy stay in St. Patrick's. This place was originally built for adult prisoners in an age when a prison was meant to be a very unpleasant place. The prisoner had no contact with his fellows and spent most of his time alone in his cell, meditating on the consequences of his misdeeds and resolving, it was hoped, to lead a better life in future. So changes were necessary, naturally, when the building became an institution for young offenders about 7 years ago. Mr. Dermot O'Flynn of the Visiting Committee described some of the changes that have taken place.
Well, of course, it has always been a regular part of the organisation of either a prison or an institution such as this to have a visiting committee.
Yes.
Our group here have operated since St. Patrick's moved up from Clonmel.
I see.
And,
what sort of change do you see in the place now over the years?
You see a number of changes here. Although this was portion of the female prison, the boys have helped, under the guidance of skilled workmen and artisans, to paint and decorate, to renovate the gardens, the grounds, and the roof and the interiors. And generally there's been a brighter, happier atmosphere about the whole institution.
Still, whatever about the happier atmosphere, St. Patrick's is still, in appearance, very much a typical 19th century prison. The boys are housed in individual cells with small, high windows and heavy doors. Iron galleries and staircases lead to the flagged passageways beneath, and discipline, too, is carefully enforced. With a population of anything up to 180 boys to deal with, a certain amount of regimentation is inevitable, and it's accepted as part of the system.
What do you think is the hardest thing about being in here?
Well, the hardest is doing PT, really. The lads seem to think it's cushy hours, and then the weekend there's nothing to look forward to.
Yes.
The one thing every day.
Yeah, being locked up, I suppose.
Be locked up. You definitely
tough.
had to change or something for the weekends.
Would you make a resolution when you're, say, coming to the end of your time here that you'll make sure not to get back in again?
I would, yes, I'd have that already.
Do you think many of the lads would make a resolution like that?
Well, majority of them would. 10 out of 100 comes back.
Not that it's bad, just that you're locked up and you miss the old dances and the pictures. You know what I mean, outside, your mother and father. Because they come out worse than it, I think.
Well, I'll be here 9 months and I get out in next month, the 18th of next month.
You got out for parole for a while too, didn't you?
That's right, for
How long
10
were you?
days.
10 days. Well, how did you feel when you were out? Did you feel very anxious to come back to St. Patrick's?
Yes, and last couple of days I wish to come back to finish my time.
Yeah.
And get it all.
Did it ever occur to you that you might perhaps hide away somewhere, you might be forgotten about and you might get away with it?
Yes, it did. The first couple of days I was out, it occurred to me all right, but then I found out there was no good for me, that I had to live it back down again. And wanted to stay at home in Ireland. And I said to be better to do it in the other 7 months. That's all I had to do when I came back, rather than to run away.
One thing that helps to make life in St. Patrick's more bearable, and which marks a sharp break from older prison tradition, is the emphasis on community life. During the hours of daylight, the boy rarely finds himself alone. The boys work and pray and eat their meals in common, and during recreation hours they mingle freely in the exercise yard and on the playing fields. A regular open-air fixture is the physical training class, which takes place under the direction of one of the officers. The boys benefit by it, even if they don't always enjoy it. Lungs breathe in the fresh air, and backs and shoulders, whose main exercise up to this may have been leaning against street corners, begin to straighten up and expand. Beside the exercise yard, there's a small football field, which is in constant use, and it's very popular with both players and spectators. As well as the seven-a-side matches between the boys themselves, there are also matches against visiting teams from the universities and colleges and clubs. But the pride of St. Patrick's, athletically speaking, is the large basement gymnasium where the boxing takes place. Punch balls and skipping ropes are a prelude to the ring itself, where a great deal of steam can be and is let off without much harm to anyone. Watching the boys pummel one another, one isn't surprised to learn that they've boxed with success against a number of Dublin clubs. In fact, some of them boxed in the National Stadium on special parole and have carried Leinster championships in their own classes. The trophies they won fill a good-sized shelf in the Governor's office and are a source of pride to everyone in St. Patrick's. There's also a recreation hall, complete with TV for the boys' use. And next door to it, there's a classroom where instruction is given in reading and writing. More than half the boys who come here read and write imperfectly, and about 4% are completely illiterate. Their stay in St. Patrick's gives them a chance to catch up with lost studies and atone for many illegal holidays from school in the past.
Your chaplain's office is right in the middle of the building here.
Yes.
Do many of the boys come to see you in the office?
Yes, quite. I suppose I get on an average a dozen a day come in with various problems. They're quite free to come to me at any time they wish, and in fact they readily avail themselves of that opportunity. In fact, they come while they're here and they come back afterwards. When they leave, they often come back to see me.
Apart from coming to visit you for chats like that, what other religious duties do the boys have here in the St. Patrick's?
Well, of course, they have Mass each morning and they have the Rosary each evening. In fact, the Rosary is very much their own because some years ago, one of the boys suggested to me that it should be a boy that should give out the Rosary, and also they were very fond, they're always, in fact, they're very good at singing hymns. For the past few years, we've encouraged a few boys to learn the harmonium. They practice it, they learn it by ear really, but they become very good at it. So one of the boys plays a hymn after the Rosary, and they all stand up, and certainly they nearly raise the roof.
What other religious context do the boys have when they're here?
Well, also I hold classes. These are entirely voluntary, but about 90% of the boys attend them. I take them in groups. Of course, when I say class, I really mean that they're informal discussion groups, because on account of the numbers and also because they're coming and going all the time. And I make quite an amount of use of visual aids like film strips and things like that.
Do you find them interested in their religion when they're in here?
I find them excellent. I think that really they react. In fact, that's one of the consolations of my job. It's a job that needs a few consolations, but they're very, very good.
And yet I suppose many of those boys weren't in fact practicing before they got into trouble at all.
Yes, quite a number of them haven't been. That, I think, was one of the roots of their troubles.
The aim of any penal institution for young people shouldn't be punishment so much as rehabilitation. The young offender must be prepared and helped to take his place again in society. And society must be prepared to accept him and absorb him. Many of these boys have been out of work for long periods. They've lost the habit of work, if they ever had it. They must regain it before they leave. So the main part of the day in St. Patrick's is spent at work of one kind or another. Those who are serving short sentences are put to work in the woodyard or cleaning the cell block or other similar jobs. But for those who are serving longer sentences, something more ambitious is attempted. These have the time to learn crafts that will be useful to them in later years. The basement of one wing of the buildings has been transformed into a series of bright and well-furnished workshops. Here, under the supervision of some of the officers, the boys can learn the essentials of any one of a number of crafts, including carpentry, cabinet making, motor engineering, tailoring, and the making and repairing of shoes. Most of the boys seem to take a genuine interest in their work and are very proud of the finished product. And in fact, it's evident that they do profit by the instruction they receive. In theory, they should have no difficulty in finding employment afterwards. In theory, they should be able to walk out of St. Patrick's straight into the kind of job their skills entitle them to. In theory, they should. But in practice, it doesn't work out quite as simply as all that.
Mr. Lynch, I'm going to interrupt you if I may. Excuse me, son. Tell me, how long do the lads spend down here in the daytime?
About 6 hours, Father.
Do they decide themselves as to which class they'll come to, whether they'll come to the woodwork or to the motor mechanics class?
Some of them express a preference for various places, and as far as is possible, the governor sees that they're sent there.
Yes. So that you have the fellows who have a real keenness for woodwork?
Well, yes.
Do you find they make much headway in the class here?
Well, the one that is interested certainly does.
And what percentage would you think are interested now?
Well, of the boys that come to me, I'd say that the percentage that are interested are as high as 90%.
That's very good. Well, what exactly is the attitude of having a class like this? Is it simply to keep the lads out of mischief, or is it to teach them a skill which will be useful to them afterwards?
Well, to teach them a skill, of course, which would be useful to them when they would go out of here.
And in fact, can they use their carpentry skill when they leave St. Patrick's?
Well, that is unfortunate that the union won't accept the time spent in here as time spent as an apprentice.
Mr. Laney, is this one of the boys' suits you're making?
Oh yes, this is one of the boys' suits, Father, yes.
I noticed they don't go in for the narrow length trousers in here.
No, we don't allow, well, they're not a case of allowing that, but we don't, they're not wear as long if we cut them narrow, you see.
But I noticed that you make a lot of other things besides the boys' suits too.
Oh yes, we're self-supporting here actually. We make all the uniforms for here and for the female officers, and shirts and ties and all, as far as this institution is concerned.
Well, that must save a lot of money to the government.
Oh, it certainly must do. There's no doubt at all about that, Father.
Do the boys get any of that back in recompense for their work here?
Well, they get a certain allowance of 6 a day now.
I suppose that wouldn't be too bad after a couple of years here.
Well, no, but you'd want to do a long time before it wound up to anything worthwhile.
Mr. Laney, what about the skills that the lads learn here in your tailoring shop? Do they become skilled tailors?
Oh yes, some of them, Father, certainly. I mean, we have got already 3 placed within the last 6 months from here in tailoring establishments outside.
And do they recognise the time that they did here as an apprenticeship?
Well, they take them in at their face value sort of style. They don't mind, as long as they're able to prove that they're able to do the job in a proper way, they're quite willing to give them a trial.
I see.
And if they're successful, keep them.
Well, you fixed up these jobs for them from St. Patrick's.
Well, it was fixed up from St. Patrick's.
And how have the lads worked out in the job?
They have worked out, as far as I know, pretty well. I mean, there's one boy I do know who's working out very, very well.
Would you recommend a boy to say or to admit that he had been in St. Patrick's when he was applying for a job?
Well, the jobs that these 3 boys got, the employers knew that they had learned the trade in St. Patrick's and were quite willing to take them.
Do you think it would be a bar against them in some jobs?
It certainly would, Father. I mean, the boy himself will think it's a bar, so therefore it's hard on him to have to say that I worked learned in an institution such as St. Patrick's or any other institution. If there was some other means that they wouldn't have to say that they could get some kind of a certificate to say that they learned the trade and went somewhere, yes. And it could be signed by somebody that would be in a position to do so, which I'm not. I'm only just an ordinary instructor here.
Yes.
I can't sign anything like that. But it would be a big help to the boys if they hadn't to say they learned it
in St. Patrick's.
I do believe.
How, in fact, do the boys fare when they leave St. Patrick's? All of them leave with the firm intention of never returning. The majority of them, especially those who are helped to find a job, never do. But unfortunately, it was possible to find some boys who were serving a second or even third term in the institution.
It's your third time. Well, now, do you think St. Patrick's helped you each time towards seeing things in the right perspective?
Well, it did, but when I got outside, I did no work, and there's nothing I could do, only get money somewhere. I mean, I couldn't expect it out of me people all the time.
Well, the fact that you were convicted, did that debar you from getting a job, do you think?
Well, I think it did, yes.
Did you try jobs, and when they heard that you were from St. Patrick's, did that put people off?
Well, they asked me where was I working last, and well, I didn't know where to say. I didn't want to tell them that I was in St. Patrick's.
Well, I found it very hard to go back home, Father, after being in trouble. There don't be many boys down there that gets into trouble. So I went home for a few hours, and then I left home and went off around looking for work.
What sort of a reception did you get when you went home? Were they glad to see you back, or were they rather ashamed of you?
Well, my parents were glad to see me back, but I don't know about other people, Father.
I know. Were you ashamed yourself about
Yes,
what other people would say?
Yes,
so
Father.
you didn't stay at home then?
No, Father.
And were you able to get a job?
Well, it was very hard at the time of the year, Father, to get a job down there.
What used you do here when after your first time in here now, when you weren't able to get work? What did you do with yourself during the daytime?
Well, I was outside and I used to get up out of bed at about 1 o'clock. There was no reason to getting up any earlier. I used to go down to town, stand around the town all day, get fed up, and I'd come home and eat the same thing all night. So I just couldn't stand it, and I had to get money somewhere.
Did you meet around with other fellas who had been in here?
I did, yes. I used to go around with the lads that were in here.
Was that a disadvantage to you, do you think?
Well, no, it wasn't. They weren't working either, and they felt the same way as I did.
Well, was it through them that you got back into trouble?
No, it wasn't really through them at all. It's just that no money and I couldn't do without it.
Does the training you get in here, I think I saw you down in the woodwork shop, does that training help you, do you think?
Oh, it does, yes. It helped you all right.
Do you enjoy doing that sort of work?
Well, I'd enjoy it, yes. If I was outside, I don't enjoy it too much in here, but if I was down on my own free will outside, well, I'd like it.
Did you really try to get a job?
I tried, yes.
I mean, did you really go hard at it in the effort to get one?
Well, not really hard, but I tried.
Do you think if you'd gone really hard that you could have got a job?
No, I doubt it.
You don't think it was your own fault that you didn't manage to get settled down to a job afterwards?
No, I don't think it was.
What about your own parents and family at home? How do they feel about this?
Well, they're always telling me to get a job and tell me where jobs are, but the jobs they tell me that there's small money, £2, £3, that's no use.
Are they very upset about you being in here?
They are, yes.
How does that feel with you? Do you worry about them being upset?
Well, I do sometimes, and other times I don't care.
Normally, it would say a boy, he feels that he might be able to get a job with a certain man. So he'd ask me if I could do anything. So I go along to this particular employer and I talk to him and try to persuade him to take on the boy. Sometimes he will, sometimes he won't. Sometimes if he has had experience of the boy before he got into trouble, he is a little bit suspicious of him.
How would you try and persuade him to take him on?
Well, I put it to him that I felt that the boy had done wrong, all right, but that he had learned his lesson, that I felt that he had really turned over a new leaf. And that's a fact. 95% of the boys that leave here really intend to stay right. 95% of the boys come in here, when I talk to them before they leave, they tell me that they intend staying out of trouble, they intend going straight, and they intend being good citizens. And they really mean it. It's only when they go out and when they come up against difficulties, maybe even the first employer they come up against and he turns them away, that just knocks the bottom out of things and things just go all wrong for them. So I make that point to the employer that I feel that he really needs a chance, and that if he takes him on, that I can guarantee that he won't do anything wrong while working for him, and I think I could guarantee that. And secondly, I tell him that, well, he's doing a good Christian act by giving a chap a chance to start and to get on his feet. And even if he only kept him for a few months and gave him a background, so that when he goes looking for another job, he could say that, well, I worked for so-and-so, well, that's a tremendous achievement and a tremendous act of charity.
Even the longest sentence comes to an end, and the day comes when the boy can step out of the gate and face the world again a free man. But two question marks hang over his head. The answer to one depends on himself.
No, they won't hold it against me. Well, if I prepare to go straight and they go out, they'll never again hold it. But I've got to be trusted first and I get out of here, and I think I will.
The answer to the second depends on us.
Well, I'm going to try for a job anyway, and I know if I can't get a job, I'll be back in. It won't be long I'm out before I'm back in again if I can't get a job.
The Minister of Justice, Mr. Charles Hoy, is in the studio with me, and we've been looking at this film together. Mr. Hoy, how satisfied are you with St. Patrick's as it's working at the moment?
Well, I think I would say that I'm reasonably satisfied with it. Enormous improvements have been made over the years, though of course there's still a great deal to be done. And I think that on the whole your film, if anything, overemphasized the harsher aspects of the institution. You showed a lot of walls and bars and keys and all that aspect, more so than, for instance, the chapel, which is really, I think, the significant part of the whole institution, that atmosphere of calm and peace.
There still seems to be a good deal of the prison atmosphere about St. Patrick's. What ideas have you in towards changing that?
Well, we have a great deal of plans and ideas in mind. First of all, of course, I would hope to get a new premises. As you know, the existing premise is side by side with Mountjoy Prison, and it isn't at all a suitable building. That's the first major improvement which we hope to make. We'll have to get a far more spacious and commodious building with a great deal more open space around it. Then we have very many other improvements in mind. For instance, we hope to get an educational psychologist. I would like to see a matron in St. Patrick's, because I think an all-male institution isn't good. I think the boys would need the influence of a woman at throughout the prison.
Yes. One of the big difficulties seems to be the question of getting the craft classes recognised by the trade unions. Is there anything can be done about this?
Well, of course, this is probably the most important single aspect of the whole institution of St. Patrick's, the possibility of getting boys suitable and adequate employment when they leave. Your film brings that out very clearly. We are doing what we can. For instance, we have asked the Irish Congress of Trade Unions, the Federation Union of Employers, and the Federation of Irish Industry, and they've all sent representatives up to the prison to see what we're doing, and we've showed them our plans for expanding the craft training and all that, and we've invited suggestions from them.
One of the boys mentioned that he was released on parole for a couple of weeks. Do you envisage a sort of system where perhaps the boys will look on St. Patrick's as a kind of boarding school to which they come for a couple of months and then go home on holidays?
No, but I have a great belief in the efficacy of the system.